Something else used in poetry would be a simile. A simile would be comparing two things using the words like or as. So let's say you have to find a simile in this poem. Now, most of you would just skim through the poem to find the word like or as, which is fine. And if you were to get kind of toward the bottom here, where it says, here and there, his brown skin hung in strips like ancient wallpaper, that would be a simile. But you have to know what you're comparing, okay? So you could say, oh, here's a simile like ancient wallpaper. Well, what is like ancient wallpaper? His brown skin hung in strips like ancient wallpaper. Well, whose brown skin hung in strips? So you'd have to read the entire poem, and if you were to read the first line, I caught a tremendous fish and held him beside the boat. So you would find out that the comparison would be the fish and the skin being like wallpaper. So be sure to know what two things you are comparing, what the simile really is about. Another term would be a metaphor. A metaphor is where you're stating one thing is another. So it's kind of like a simile, but you're not using like or as. So if we were to look at this poem, my family lives inside a medicine chest. Dad is the supersized Band-Aid. That's a metaphor because you're saying Dad is a Band-Aid. To make that a simile, all you would have to do is say Dad is like a Band-Aid. Mom is the middle-sized tweezer is a metaphor, but again, to make it a simile, Mom is like a middle-sized tweezer. Personification. Personification is a figure of speech in which non-living things are given human qualities or human form. So you're giving human characteristics to non-living objects, such as hunger sat shivering. You're giving a human characteristic shivering to hunger, which is a non-living object. Flowers danced, the door smiled, the ceiling laughed, the floor ran. All of these human characteristics to non-living objects would be personification. So if we were to look at this poem, Proud Words, it says, look out how you use proud words. When you let proud words go, it is not easy to call them back. They wear long boots, hard boots. They walk off proud. They can't hear you calling. Look out how you use proud words. So in this poem, you're personifying proud words by saying that they wear boots, they walk, they can't hear you. You're giving them all human characteristics. A hyperbole is a figure of speech that gives force or intensity to what we say or write. It is basically an exaggeration. An example would be, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, or if he didn't call me, I would die. These are just examples of exaggerations, which are hyperboles. Onomatopoeia are words that imitate the sound they are naming, such as boom, bang, buzz, chirp. These are all examples of onomatopoeia. Alliteration are consonant sounds repeated at the beginning of words, such as Peter Piper picked, that repetition of a P sound. Sally sells seashells, the repetition of that S sound. Those are examples of alliteration. Assonance are repetition of vowel sounds. The words tune and food, that oo sound that's repeated, that's assonance. Moving on, the theme of a poem provides an answer to the question, what is the work about? What is the theme of this poem? What is it about? The tone of a poem is the writer's attitude toward the work. It might be playful, angry, serious, ironic, and it really matters that you figure out what the tone is, because depending on the tone of the poem, you might get the wrong interpretation. There are some poems, such as War is Kind, where if you take it one way, you're not going to get the real meaning. Diction is basically the word choice used by an author. So what words are they using? Why are they using this word? Why are they saying big instead of large? Or why are they saying this instead of that? Poems are so short and brief, some of them, that every word counts. The genre of a poem is the literary form. So some poems are tragic, they're epic, they're comedies, they're novels, they're essays, they're lyrics, they're sonnets, all these different types of poems. So you would have to know what genre the poem is, and that can help you get to the meaning of a poem. Imagery is language that appeals to the senses. Many images are visual, but they can also appeal to those five senses. And the imagery of a poem is what you're picturing, what you're feeling, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're seeing. In this brief part from Those Winter Sundays, let's see what we can feel or think and imagine with these two lines. Then with cracked hand that ached from labor in the weekday weather. You should have been able to picture these cracked hands from somebody working really hard all week, right? That's imagery. Symbolism is when a person, place, thing, or event has meaning in itself and it also stands for something else. We can say this lamb stands for innocence, the eagle stands for America, these doves stand for peace. A lot of times colors symbolize something in a poem. The color red could be love or lust. The color green could be envy. All these things are symbolic, and poetry has a lot of symbolism in it. Everything stands for something else. Now, blank verse is poetry written in unrhymed iambic pentameter. This is what Shakespeare wrote most of his plays in, blank verse. Free verse, on the other hand, is unrhymed poetry with any type of length, no specific pattern. It's basically, if I were to say, take out a pen and paper and write a poem. That's free verse, writing anything you want. A couplet is a rhyming stanza made up of two lines. So any two rhyming stanzas would be a couplet. Repetition. Poets repeat words and sounds for effect or emphasis. Sometimes if you see a word repeated in a poem, there's a reason for that. It's standing out and it's probably pretty important. So you want to look and see if anything is repeated and why. There's definitely a reason. Again, some poems are so short. Why are they using that same word twice? Repetition. Poets repeat words. It's totally a joke. You get it? I repeated this line. Okay. Moving on.